asking for food and water. They said that that child was severely
malnourished. Franke is now sharing her
malnourished.
story in a new book, including allegations about her mom's relationship
Now,
with her.
for the first time, Ruby's eldest daughter, Sherry, is telling her...
Ivins, Utah. A quiet town. The kind of place where people believed the worst tragedies only appeared on the evening news. But on the morning of August 30th, 2023, that calm was torn apart by a scene no one could forget. On a small street, a frail boy staggered barefoot, his feet bleeding from escape. His face was gaunt, his eyes wide with panic, his body covered in wounds. His arms were wrapped in filthy bandages. He knocked on a neighbor's door and whispered in desperation, "I'm hungry, I was tied up, please help me." The neighbor froze in shock. Police were called immediately. In that instant, the name Ruby Franke, once celebrated by millions around the world as YouTube's perfect mom, shifted from symbol of the ideal family to suspect in a horrifying child abuse case. For years, Ruby Franke had been the face of the 8 Passengers channel. Launched with 6 children and a husband by her side, Ruby recorded thousands of family vlogs. The scenes seemed harmless: breakfast at the kitchen table, lessons at home, weekend picnics. Ruby's smile and calm, stern tone convinced viewers that this was the picture of a model household. To many, she was more than a YouTuber. She was a cultural icon of discipline and motherhood. Comments poured in under every video. "I wish I could raise my kids like her. This is the perfect family." Major outlets called her a successful YouTube mom. Thousands of mothers followed her parenting style. But in those very videos, the shadow had already crept in. Ruby once described forcing her 6-year-old daughter to sleep on a couch for months as punishment. Another time, she let her son go hungry at school because he forgot his chore. Some viewers felt uneasy, and even a petition called for an investigation. Yet most chose to believe in the myth of the perfect mom. On the morning of August 30th, 2023, the truth could no longer be hidden. The boy had escaped from the home of Jodi Hildebrandt, Ruby's close associate, his body weak and scarred. When police entered, they discovered another child, also Ruby's, in severe malnutrition. The walls that once framed cheerful family vlogs were now sealed as a crime scene. The perfect mom was accused of being the abuser. News spread at lightning speed. CNN, NBC, and ABC broke the story. The New York Times called it an unprecedented YouTube shock. Social media erupted with outrage. "We were lied to. I let my kids watch her every day." Fans who had defended Ruby now faced the painful truth that the perfect image had always been a mask. Viewers began rewatching old videos, dissecting every detail. What once seemed like stern discipline now looked like chilling evidence of abuse. But it was too late. The children had endured years of suffering in silence, hidden in plain sight before millions of eyes. The contrast between two worlds left society haunted. On YouTube, Ruby preached love, sacrifice, discipline, and faith. Behind closed doors, her children lived in hunger, fear, and despair. That cruel contradiction turned Ruby Franke from the emblem of family values into a convicted abuser, a collapse no one could have imagined. In less than 30 seconds, Ruby Franke's story contained everything of a true tragedy: the fall from grace, the betrayal of trust, and the desperate cry of a child. But this was only the beginning, because behind the phrase Ruby Franke's dark secret lies a long journey from YouTube stardom to the shadows of a prison cell, a story that forces us to ask, how does a mother once hailed as the symbol of love and discipline become the abuser of her own children? Do not look away. What comes next will be darker than anything you have ever imagined. Ruby Franke did not become one of America's most famous YouTube moms by accident. Her journey began in 2015 when she and her husband Kevin Franke, a university professor, launched the channel 8 Passengers. The name reflected the exact number of family members, 8 people in a typical Mormon household in Utah. Ruby quickly became the face of the channel, the guiding voice in most videos, while Kevin and the 6 children appeared as supporting characters in the family story. At that time, YouTube was booming with the family vlog trend. Viewers were losing interest in heavily scripted productions and instead craved simplicity and authentic lives. Ruby captured that desire perfectly. Her camera recorded ordinary moments. The children getting ready for fall in the morning, family dinners, small moral lessons she delivered with patience. There were no flashy effects, only daily life. Yet that daily life had a strange magnetic power. In the videos, Ruby appeared with a gentle smile, tidy appearance, eyes both stern and confident. Her 6 children, Shari, Chad, Abby, Julie, Russell, and Eve, were the pieces that made up the portrait of the perfect American family. Behind them stood a bright, orderly home. The kitchen was neat. The dining table always filled with food. Everything was filmed under natural light, creating the impression that viewers were witnessing genuine happiness. Success came quickly. Within 2 years, 8 Passengers had surpassed 1 million subscribed. Companies selling household goods and children's products sought advertising partnerships. Ruby was invited to speak at parenting conferences and profiled in local newspapers as a role model for modern mothers. In the Mormon community of Utah, the Franke family was seen as an embodiment of tradition, discipline, religious devotion, and family unity. In front of the camera, Ruby did not hesitate to show her strictness. She often shared her belief that children needed discipline, even punishments that might seem harsh to outsiders. A child who misbehaved could lose privileges for weeks or be required to write a detailed apology journal. Her calm explanations made audiences believe this was necessary toughness, teaching children accountability. Viewers also became attached to the personalities of each child. Shari, the eldest, smart and independent, often acted as her mother's right hand. Chad, the eldest son, mischievous and rebellious. Abby and Julie were gentle and helpful. Russell and Eve, the youngest, were the soul of the channel, adding humor and charm. Over time, audiences felt as though they were part of this family. Comments overflowed with admiration. "This is the only YouTube channel my whole family watches together. Thank you, Ruby, for inspiring motherhood." Some declared, "I want to raise my kids like Ruby." Hundreds of thousands of mothers began imitating her parenting method, yet cracks were already forming behind the polished image. Some attentive viewers noticed a troubling coldness in Ruby's methods. She once told a story about refusing to bring lunch to her son when he forgot to prepare it, calling it a lesson he'll never forget. Another time, she admitted her 6-year-old daughter had been made to sleep on the couch for months for not sharing a bedroom. These details stirred debate, but the admiration of millions drowned out the warnings. Kevin, the husband, began appearing less often in the video. Viewers speculated, but Ruby explained that he was busy with work at the university. The spotlight remained solely on Ruby and the children. She was the soul of 8 Passengers, directing the entire narrative. Questions quietly surfaced. Was Ruby's strictness simply a parenting style, or a mask hiding something far harsher? At the time, no one could imagine these details were foreshadowing a tragedy. The audience kept watching. The uploads remained consistent. Family trips, Bible study sessions, moments of Ruby teaching gratitude and responsibility. Everything seemed to showcase a united family, a devoted mother, a YouTube icon, and that was exactly what made the fall to come so unbearably devastating. In the bright glow of YouTube, Ruby Franke's family was still seen as a symbol of discipline, order, and faith. But behind the vlogs filled with laughter, cracks began to appear. Silent warnings of a tragedy that was slowly building. As time went on, viewers noticed disturbing details. A young boy stood before the camera as Ruby explained he had been punished by going hungry at school. A little girl sat quietly on the couch while Ruby told the audience that she was facing consequences for not sharing her bedroom. At first, such words from a mother with millions of subscribers were seen as lessons in tough love. But to more observant viewers, they rang like alarm bells. In 2020, a petition appeared online urging authorities to investigate the Franke household. Supporters of the petition argued Ruby had crossed the line. They cited videos showing signs of both emotional and physical abuse. But the petition faded into obscurity. The reason was simple. The image of the perfect mom was too strong, too celebrated, drowning out all warnings in a tide of admiration. Inside the family, cracks were visible as well. Shari, the eldest daughter, began to show her disapproval. She appeared less frequently in the videos, eventually moving out on her own. On social media, Shari hinted that her family had problems and warned others not to blindly trust everything they saw on YouTube. Yet her words were not powerful enough to change the crowd's perception. Kevin Franke, the husband, also faded into the background. He appeared less and less, eventually separating from Ruby as she fell deeper under the influence of Jodi Hildebrandt, a self-proclaimed counselor. Jodi preached a philosophy of harsh discipline therapy and became Ruby's closest advisor. To many, Jodi reinforced Ruby's extreme belief that punishment, both physical and emotional, was the only path to saving her children. The tone of Ruby's videos shifted. Once light-hearted family moments, they turned into long lectures. Ruby stared directly into the camera, her voice cold, speaking about sin, atonement, and how children must bear the responsibility of their choices. Loyal fans still saw this as admirable strictness, but to outsiders it began to feel chilling, like a doctrine born from religious extremism. A deeper question arose. Could this tragedy have been prevented if someone had listened? If someone had acted when Ruby first punished her children openly on camera? If YouTube, the press, or the online community had refused to look away, would the 6 children have been spared years of silent suffering? Behind the glossy vlogs was a home that grew increasingly harsh. Meals were tightly controlled. Punishments stretched beyond loss of privileges to long isolation, even deliberate starvation. These details slipped into Ruby's videos, sometimes just as casual anecdotes, but for some they left a lingering sense of dread. The truth is that the darkness had been there all along, but no one wanted to believe it. No one dared to believe that a mother praised by millions could be so cruel. And because of that silence, the tragedy only grew deeper. Day by day, hour by hour, inside the very home so many once believed was perfect. In the bright glow of YouTube, Ruby Franke's family was still seen as a symbol of discipline, order, and faith. But behind the vlogs filled with laughter, cracks began to appear. Silent warnings of a tragedy that was slowly building. As time went on, viewers noticed disturbing details. A young boy stood before the camera as Ruby explained he had been punished by going hungry at school. A little girl sat quietly on the couch while Ruby told the audience that she was facing consequences for not sharing her bedroom. At first, such words from a mother with millions of subscribers were seen as lessons in tough love. But to more observant viewers, they rang like alarm bells. In 2020, a petition appeared online urging authorities to investigate the Franke household. Supporters of the petition argued Ruby had crossed the line. They cited videos showing signs of both emotional and physical abuse. But the petition faded into obscurity. The reason was simple. The image of the perfect mom was too strong, too celebrated, drowning out all warnings in a tide of admiration. Inside the family, cracks were visible as well. Shari, the eldest daughter, began to show her disapproval. She appeared less frequently in the videos, eventually moving out on her own. On social media, Shari hinted that her family had problems and warned others not to blindly trust everything they saw on YouTube. Yet her words were not powerful enough to change the crowd's perception. Kevin Franke, the husband, also faded into the background. He appeared less and less, eventually separating from Ruby as she fell deeper under the influence of Jodi Hildebrandt, a self-proclaimed counselor. Jodi preached a philosophy of harsh discipline therapy and became Ruby's closest advisor. To many, Jodi reinforced Ruby's extreme belief that punishment, both physical and emotional, was the only path to saving her children. The tone of Ruby's videos shifted. Once light-hearted family moments, they turned into long lectures. Ruby stared directly into the camera, her voice cold, speaking about sin, atonement, and how children must bear the responsibility of their choices. Loyal fans still saw this as admirable strictness, but to outsiders it began to feel chilling, like a doctrine born from religious extremism. A deeper question arose. Could this tragedy have been prevented if someone had listened? If someone had acted when Ruby first punished her children openly on camera? If YouTube, the press, or the online community had refused to look away, Would the 6 children have been spared years of silent suffering? Behind the glossy vlogs was a home that grew increasingly harsh. Meals were tightly controlled. Punishments stretched beyond loss of privileges to long isolation, even deliberate starvation. These details slipped into Ruby's videos, sometimes just as casual anecdotes, but for some they left a lingering sense of dread. The truth is that the darkness had been there all along, but no one wanted to believe it. No one dared to believe that a mother praised by millions could be so cruel. And because of that silence, the tragedy only grew deeper. Day by day, hour by hour, inside the very home so many once believed was perfect. The day Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt were arrested, America was stunned. But the real storm arrived when the trial began. Every detail revealed in court, every piece of evidence presented before the judge, turned public outrage into a tidal wave. Reporters crowded outside the Utah courthouse. Cameras flashed relentlessly as Ruby appeared with a weary face, disheveled hair, and hollow eyes. The woman who once sat upright in bright YouTube videos now bowed her head before the judge, hands bound by cold steel. The nation watched through live broadcasts. The image struck deep. The perfect mom now stood before justice as a child abuser. Prosecutors described in detail how the children were starved, bound, and isolated. One child had been locked away for days without sufficient food. Another had been forced to sleep on the cold floor while injured. Doctors testified to severe malnutrition and layers of old and new wounds on the children's bodies. The prosecution concluded, this was not discipline. This was systematic torture. The words echoed, silencing the entire courtroom. Ruby, in her testimony, repeatedly mentioned Jodi Hildebrandt. She claimed she had been deeply influenced by Jodi's extreme philosophy, convinced that harsh punishment was the only way to save her children. Jodi sat beside her, expression cold. Her lawyers argued she was only an advisor, that the final choices were Ruby's. The trial became a battleground of 2 opposing narratives. One side declared Ruby the primary culprit, a cruel mother who destroyed her children's childhoods. The other argued Ruby was also a victim, manipulated by Jodi, a so-called psychology guru who planted destructive ideas. Outside the courthouse, the public was deeply divided. On social media, millions debated fierce. Some wrote, "Nothing justifies starving and tying up your own children." Others replied, "She was brainwashed by Jodi." Ruby is also a victim. Talk shows and news programs invited psychologists, lawyers, and sociologists to dissect the case. Each voice added fuel to the fire. Then came a shocking revelation. In personal notes and text messages, Ruby had admitted she believed she was commanded by God to purify her children through discipline. These words became key evidence, proving Ruby wasn't just influenced. She truly believed punishment was her sacred mission. When prosecutors read the passages aloud, many in the courtroom shuddered. In February 2024, Ruby Franke pled guilty to 6 counts of aggravated child abuse. The sentence, at least 30 years in prison. Since all 6 counts would run consecutively, the courtroom sat in stunned silence before erupting in murmurs. Some felt justice had been served. Others mourned the collapse of the woman they once admired. Jodi Hildebrandt was sentenced as well, facing similar terms. The 2 women who once stood together teaching about family discipline now stood side by side as criminals. International media called it the trial that exposed YouTube's dark side. The focus feasts beyond Ruby's crimes to a larger question. Had society become too willing to trust the polished images presented online? How many families hid fractures behind cameras? How many children suffered silently while the world pressed like and The trial ended, but the echo remained. In the final images, Ruby was led from the courtroom, her eyes vacant, her hands shackled. Those pictures spread worldwide, symbols of collapse. A mother once celebrated was now condemned as a criminal. And for the Franke children, the battle had only begun. They would have to rebuild their lives from broken pieces. Justice might have arrived, but the pain endured. The story of Ruby Franke's dark secret does not end with a verdict. It is a painful warning for a society too eager to believe in illusions, forgetting that reality can be far more brutal. The trial ended, the verdict was read, but the story of Ruby Franke did not close there. Instead, it opened a new chapter, not for Ruby, but for the public, for society, and for the children who must now live with the legacy of a dark past. Ruby Franke, once a famous family YouTuber, is now a convicted abuser, serving at least 30 years in prison. Her name, once synonymous with perfect mom, is now tied only to betrayal of trust. The world saw clearly the fragile line between public image and hidden truth. The bright vlogs filled with smiles now look like a cruel joke, because behind those cameras were children who were starved and punished. Questions echoed everywhere. Was Ruby only the perpetrator, or was she also a victim of manipulation? Some insisted she knew exactly what she was doing, every action deliberate. Others argued she had been led astray by Jodi Hildebrandt, indoctrinated with extreme ideas until she lost her sense of right and wrong. Whatever the interpretation, the outcome remains the same. The children paid the price with stolen childhoods. For the public, the Ruby Franke case became a mirror reflecting the danger of idealizing online images. Millions believed in the illusion of a perfect family through videos just a few minutes long. They smiled at 6 laughing children, never imagining that when the cameras stopped, those same children might face merciless punishment. The painful lesson reminds us that the online world never shows the whole truth. For society, it was a wake-up call about child protection. Warning signs had existed. Ruby's cold anecdotes about withholding food, concerned comments from viewers, even a petition urging investigation. Yet all were ignored, because people wanted to believe in a beautiful illusion, and because the system failed to act quickly enough. If someone had spoken louder, acted sooner, could the tragedy have been prevented? For the Franke children, the road ahead is steep. They are free from that oppressive home, but the memories remain. Wounds on the body may heal, but the psychological scars will linger for life. How can a child learn to trust in a mother's love when the very person who preached love and discipline was the one who inflicted the deepest pain? The case also raised a larger question for YouTube and social media platforms. Where is their responsibility when millions follow a family showing clear signs of abuse? Algorithms prioritized attention-grabbing content, regardless of hidden harm. Platforms profited from advertising while children behind the screen suffered. Should they not bear greater accountability for the safety of children displayed daily online? Ultimately, the Ruby Franke case proves a brutal truth. Sometimes the most dangerous crimes are not those committed in the open, but those disguised under the mask of perfection. A smile can hide tears, a family vlog can conceal cries for help, and a role model can collapse overnight, exposing a terrifying darkness within. Ruby Franke's dark secret is not only the story of one mother's fall, it is a question for all of us. How many times have we believed in polished images and forgotten reality? How many children out there still endure in silence while we are busy watching, liking, and sharing? As the story closes, ask yourself, in your heart, is Ruby Franke a monster, or also a victim? And more importantly, will society learn enough to ensure no other child will ever have to knock on a neighbor's door and whisper in desperation, "Please help me"? Do not look away, because if we turn our heads, other shadows will continue to grow, right inside the families we thought were happy.